Welcome to the latest Patriots Roundtable. I'm Bobby Krivitsky. He's Mike Dussault. Many of you know him better as Pat's Propaganda. Mike, even when the Patriots aren't playing, they're in the news. It seems like every team with a head coaching vacancy is interested in Josh McDaniels and or Matt Patricia, understandably so. Let's start with Josh McDaniels, and I don't want to beat around the bush. It seems to me like if he gets offered the New York Giants job, there's no way he turns that down, right?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I think that's a good job for him. I mean, I think he's probably learned a lot, being a head coach once, and we kind of know the problems he went through and the growing pains, and to kind of reset, come back to New England, and we all know what happened with Belichick on his second go around, and I think that the Giants are a stable organization. They're going to probably have to transition from Eli in a couple years, so he'll have a hand in that. And I think that, from the get-go, but, to have Eli Manning there, who's a, solid veteran quarterback. Of course, I'm biting my tongue here not to bring up how much I hate him for the Super Bowl losses, but, he's a solid veteran, and, it's a good position to be in if you're going to bring in somebody young, kind of teach him the ropes and build that offense from scratch. I think it's a good situation for McDaniels should he choose to leave.
And I know people look at Dave Gettleman, the new GM there, who has a tendency to lean defense and think that might be the direction he goes in. I've even seen some reports say that, hey, Matt Patricia might be the leader in the clubhouse for that job. I just don't see it. They've sunk a lot of money into the defense, but with that number 2 pick in the draft, they're presumably going to take their heir apparent to Eli Manning, who they also don't have to rush into starting right away as a rookie. They can let him develop at least for a season behind Eli. So it's more important, in my opinion at least, for them to have a coach to pair with and help develop that young quarterback. As for Patricia, is there any opening you look at and say, oh yeah, if he gets that, he's got to go?
I really scratch my head with Matt Patricia, and, less so than McDaniels. I feel like I just don't know where Belichick ends and Patricia begins. And, is he going to go to, say, a place like Detroit, and his defense is going to be ranked last in a lot of categories, but they're giving up no points? I mean, does that translate outside of New England? I just don't know, and I mean, I know he's a really smart guy, and it's hard for me, at least in his case, where I feel like with McDaniels, we've got such a long history of offensive evolution, and, we know kind of how outside the box he kind of thinks. I just don't know with Patricia. I really don't. And I think any team that picks him up, I would really have concerns that, you're kind of just hoping some of that Patriots magic rubs off on you. But, as somebody who, really loves defense and I don't know. I'm on the fence about it. And I feel like it's a big buyer beware situation if you're going to hire him and think, what's his offensive staff going to look like? What's his offensive philosophy? We don't know any of that stuff. So I just think he's a really interesting one. And I would be very cautious if I was another team kind of circling him.
Since Matt Patricia was named defensive coordinator of the Patriots in 2012, the defense has ranked never outside of the top 10 in total points allowed. Now, that's him carrying out Bill Belichick's philosophy, of course. So I'm not sure how to divvy up the credit there, but you got to give him some at least for being the one calling the plays under that direction. I'm not sure, for as much as I like Matt Patricia, clearly a bright guy, clearly someone who is able to relate to the players well and communicate with them. I'm not sure how he would handle all the responsibilities, offensive and the special team portion of it. So to me, Matt Patricia this time, I think that he's as ready as he's going to be, but he's going to need a good staff around him. And so you talk about that Patriots magic rubbing off on him. I think that if he gets offered the Lions job, maybe it's not ideal, but he's going to a place with some level of familiarity with Bob Quinn from the Patriots in place as the GM. And I think those two can have an honest understanding of what support system needs to be put around Patricia for him to succeed.
Yeah, he's it's just interesting. It's just the bend don't break and that kind of philosophy. And I mean, you've got to give him a lot of credit. I think especially this year, where I would have said at the beginning of the season, if you lose Dante Hightower, especially even losing Kyle Van Noy, who really came on at the end of the season, Some of those losses they've been able to overcome them. And, in 2015, they didn't have home field advantage, but I feel like there was a little bit of a Super Bowl hangover this year, especially on the defensive side of the ball. A little bit of concern to me would just be how good the secondary was supposed to be. And, we're still seeing it. Even I don't want to read too much into the Jets game, but, we're still seeing brain farts on the back end, with Malcolm Butler and Stephon Gilmore. They're either playing great or they're playing terrible. So all those things kind of factor into it. And, I think we might be looking at, this is the first go around for Matt Patricia. He'll have a few years somewhere, then he'll get fired, he'll go back to the Patriots, and then he'll rebuild his career like McDaniels did. So I don't know, but it's just hard to tell with the Patriots staff, how it all kind of will flush out. And we've even seen it with players too, where guys are successful here and then they go somewhere else and they're not quite as successful.
Mike, it was believed that someone who could prevent Matt Patricia, Brian Flores, the heir apparent for that defensive coordinator spot, but now he's even getting head coaching looks. The Arizona Cardinals putting in a request to interview him. Do you think that it's early, but do you think that he makes the jump right now?
I mean, that's even crazier. It's Matt Patricia's crazy to me, but you're going to hire Brian Flores, who's never been a defensive coordinator before. I mean, that seems even more crazy to me. But, it's funny because I find myself, I don't want to say excited to see McDaniels and Patricia leave, but I kind of feel enthusiastic about getting some new blood in there and, seeing what maybe Chad O'Shea, who's the receivers coach, if he got promoted to offensive coordinator, with Brian Flores, if obviously he didn't get a head coaching position, gets promoted to defensive coordinator, kind of what they bring and kind of a new twist. I mean, I guess that's just a spoiled Patriots fan being like, I'm sick of winning this style. Let's win with a new style. It's that kind of thing. But it would certainly be interesting. I think then you kind of have a sense of, I see what's different now and what Patricia did bring and what Flores is doing differently.
It'll be interesting to see what happens there. Flores, I'm not sure he's quite ready to be a head coach. Like you said, hasn't even been a defensive coordinator yet. But I do think he has the makings down the line to be a good head coach. Hopefully the Patriots don't lose their plan B for defensive coordinator. We're going to get to the state of the Patriots in just a second, Mike. But first, I want to tell everyone a quick and easy way to make some cash. So listen up, hoop fans. Basketball season is back. And now that your favorite hardwood heroes have returned to action, it's time for you to put your fantasy knowledge to the test to win huge cash prizes every night playing one-day fantasy basketball at DraftKings.com. At DraftKings, there are so many ways to play. Choose from public contests with huge cash prizes. They've even got beginner and casual contests where you'll play against people of similar skill level. The best part, you get to draft a new team each day, and drafting a team is arguably the best part of fantasy. The only thing better, winning cash doing it. Just ask Dan from St. Louis or Jeremy from Austin. They both turned a $3 entry into $1,000. Huge cash prizes and bragging rights await only at DraftKings. Use code CLNS at DraftKings.com to play free with your first deposit for your share of $10,000 in total prizes tonight. Don't wait. Use code CLNS at DraftKings.com now to choose your lineup, and you can seriously cash in tonight. That's code CLNS only at DraftKings.com. The game inside the game. Minimum $5 deposit required. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details. For the Patriots in their win against the Jets, they've been winning. It hasn't looked pretty down the stretch here. Are you concerned at all? What's your level of confidence in the Patriots going into the postseason?
Well, I think in a one-game situation, no matter who the Patriots roll out there, they're going to be a tough out for anybody. And no matter how the game unfolds, whether they end up in another 28-3 hole or they roll out to a big lead, I think that that you're going to get a team that's going to fight for 60 minutes. So on that level, I'm not that concerned. I think as we've seen, the Patriots, they're just the best team in the league right now. They've got the best quarterback. I know some people probably might prefer to have Jimmy Garoppolo supposedly right now, I think, from what I've been reading. But it's always kind of, I think, a survive and, advance situation. And I think for me, the biggest thing is getting Chris Hogan and James White back. I think those two guys, when you look at kind of the third down struggles that they've had, and two guys I think would really help a lot. Now, neither of them is Julian Edelman. So I still, before the season, even before they lost, well, I guess right after they lost Edelman, but before they lost Hightower, the question is, who's going to step up in these playoff games? Because without Julian Edelman, you probably don't have those last two Super Bowls. I mean, not the third down catches, the miracle catch, all that stuff. So, they're going to need guys to step up, especially in third down. And I mean, I can't even imagine a 3rd and 17, who they're going to go to. So I think those are still some things, that unanswered questions, I guess, that can only be answered in the playoffs when it's all on the line. So in that regard, I'm curious, because, we're in uncharted territory a little bit, I feel like, this season, where there've been a lot of injuries. There's definitely some weaknesses, but they have home field, and they're usually pretty tough to beat at home. So it's going to be interesting. I'm really curious to see how this team does over the next, hopefully.
Team seems more vulnerable than perhaps they have in the past, but when you really look at it and examine some of the things this team has going for it, it's easy for us to sit here and nitpick the Patriots and criticize and act at times like the sky is falling or this team is screwed. But when you look at it, Dion Lewis, for perspective, led the NFL in rushing yards in the second half of the season and has really emerged as a key cog on this team. Second most offensive skill player behind Gronkowski this season. Lewis finished the season with 6 touchdowns, nearly 900 yards rushing, and averaged 5 yards per carry. The defense allowed the fewest points in games 9 through 16 this season and finished ranked 5th overall in total points allowed. You talked about them getting healthy at the right time. Also adding Kyle Van Noy back, who thrived on the edge, getting Alan Branch back in the interior. Rex Burkhead, I don't know about 3rd and 17, Mike, but certainly can help to give you some of that production that you lost when Julian Edelman went down and run some of those same routes. And on top of it, you look at the addition of James Harrison, who proved in that game against the Jets, albeit the competition wasn't the greatest, but he showed he's still got something left in the tank. He can still set the edge for this team, which is huge. We're going to talk about playoff opponents in just a minute for the divisional round, and there's one team in particular who I think listeners can figure out he's really going to matter against in that area. And on top of it, he proved at the end of the game he can still get after the quarterback, that he's still got some juice in the tank in that regard as well. And then you look at the development of players in that front seven, like Marquise Flowers, who you can pair on the edge with Van Noy and with James Harrison. So I really think this team has a lot going for it. And on top of it, it's clearly have their flaws, but you know what? The NFL as a whole continues to deliver a watered down product. And so when you look out at the rest of the league, it's not that there aren't good teams. It's not that there aren't teams capable of beating the Patriots. But if we're being candid, Mike, the rest of the league, it's just not quite that great.
Yeah. I mean, as always, I feel like to beat the Patriots in the playoffs, you really need to play a perfect game. And, when we look at the games that they lost in the playoffs, I mean, really, you can just go right down the line of every year they didn't win the Super Bowl. And even, I mean, probably the shining example was 2010 with Mark Sanchez, who played the game of his life. It takes a perfect game to beat them, especially at home, especially in the playoffs. And that's why, I mean, we'll get into it. I mean, I'm always afraid of Kansas City because I feel like they always match up pretty well. But it's an interesting season because it almost in some ways felt like it's kind of the preseason, and now can everything come together at the right time and play the way they need to play as a team, and play that kind of, Patriots team that we're used to, those team victories where it's just the special teams, the offense, the defense, all working in conjunction. There's some unknowns. It's like, oh, well, how healthy is Hogan going to be? Is Alan Branch going to be, just the third tackle? Is he going to be a dominant guy? Is James Harrison going to get attacked in coverage? There's so many questions you kind of still have, which feels a little bit strange. And usually it's reminiscent again of those injury years where, when we were talking in 2015, where it's like, can Edelman come back from, can Gronk come back? Can these guys all kind of come back and can it all click at a level needed to win the Super Bowl? That's what we're going to see. So it's a fun season. It's really quite interesting here as we're taking this time on the bye week to kind of reflect on what transpired over the course of the regular season and what's coming up.
If whether or not this Patriots team is truly for real or not, I think they are. One of those concerns, though, Mike, to many, is the play of Tom Brady here in December as we now turn into January. Hasn't looked Tom Brady-like down the stretch. He's got the Achilles injury. He's dealing with a shoulder injury. We see him shaking off his hand at times. Are you at all concerned about how TB12 played this last month of the regular season?
Well, I mean, I think I kind of throw the last Jets game out. I mean, it was like bitter cold and, so I mean, that kind of thing. And I mean, anytime he goes into Pittsburgh and gets the win, I feel pretty good about his chances, especially at home, with 2 weeks to heal up. And, Tom Brady is probably the last guy I'm not concerned about. I mean, there are certainly situations, specifically third down, as I mentioned before, where I think they definitely need to be better. And I think that it took a while, I feel like, with Edelman's absence to kind of catch up with them. But they did finish 10th and third down this year, which, was pretty low by their standards, and their overall conversion percentage was, near one of the worst under Belichick. So I think those are areas to concern. But in terms of Tom Brady specifically, I don't really worry about him. I mean, I think, we saw in the Super Bowl last year. I mean, it's hard to have a worse first half than Tom Brady had in the Super Bowl last year. And he came back out, and we all saw what happened in the second half. So I think that he's a guy that's going to be prepared, that's not going to, get down after, maybe something doesn't quite go his way, or he throws a pick six that makes it look like the Patriots are about to get blown out. I mean, if Tom Brady can come back from that and put together the second half he had in Super Bowl 51, I'm not too worried about him being the reason they're going to lose a playoff game. It's going to be more of a team effort, and there are going to have to be a lot of miscommunications and breakdowns in the plan. But I mean, really, at the end of the day, if the Patriots bring their best game for the next 3 games, I struggle to see how a team beats them.
That's all it takes. Brady's got 2 weeks to get right, work with Alex Guerrero. He's got his weapons coming back. He's at home for the postseason up until, should they make the Super Bowl, knock on wood, hopefully they do. So I'm not too concerned about TB12. You said so yourself, Mike, just to misuse your words for a second, that you get concerned when the Chiefs come to town. If you look at the playoff scenarios here for who the Patriots might face in the divisional round, it seems like the Chiefs are coming to town. So what are your thoughts on a potential opening night rematch?
Well, I mean, first of all, as a football fan and a Patriots fan, I want games with drama. I don't want Tennessee to come in and be like, ugh. I guess we'll end your season for you, Tennessee, and then we'll look forward to has some narrative to it, and especially a team that blew them out at home, and I was there for that game in the opener. So I've always been afraid. Not I'm gonna say afraid. I always have thought Kansas City matches up really well with the Patriots because, as I said earlier, it's going to take a clean game to beat the Patriots, and that's what Kansas City can do. They don't have to necessarily be explosive, but they have a great running game this year. They have Alex Smith, who can put together a game where he doesn't throw interceptions. They don't need to go down the field. They can just dink and dunk like the Patriots do. And the Patriots defense, as we see with the bend don't break, they're largely okay with it. If you want to take the underneath stuff, go ahead and have it. We just don't think you can execute it for a full game. And the Chiefs are one of those teams that I think if the game unfolds for them, they can do it. And they also have the defense and the pass rushers that you kind of need to break up the pocket and to give Tom Brady trouble. So, despite their, early season hot start, and then they kind of fell off before coming back on at the end to make the playoffs, I think they're definitely a team that will give the Patriots a go. I also think that they'll get the full attention of the Patriots, and the fact that they came in here and knocked the crap out of the Patriots in week 1 is a good thing. It's going to have everybody's attention. If it's here come the Bills, third time we got to play them, and they're no offense team. So I want the Chiefs. I hope it's the Chiefs, and I think that'll make for the most interesting playoff round.
Chance for Bill Belichick to serve up some humble pie to his team if it is the Chiefs, as he reminds them what happened on opening night. Well, Kansas City, they have the athletes to test the Patriots front seven horizontally and to really challenge that Patriots defense in ways that are some of the team's weaknesses there, some of its Achilles heels. On the other hand, I think that this front seven, when you look at the development of Kyle Van Noy, who's thrived since moving to the edge, the development of Marquise Flowers, the addition of James Harrison, and then offensively, I think you can say the same thing. And it goes beyond just the natural development of a season when you look at the performance that Dion Lewis has had this year. When you look at, I think they're more comfortable with Brandon Cooks. I know fans are still disappointed, but I think he has certainly had a pretty good season, and his role is a bit more clear now than it was on opening night. When you look at the fact that in that game, they didn't have the quick passing attack working for them, and now they do. Rex Burkhead has become a key cog on this team. So I think the Patriots are just in a much better place than they were to start the season. Kansas City certainly capable of going 2-0 against the Patriots this year, but I just don't see that happening personally. That's going to wrap here on CLNS Media, the leading online provider of audiovisual content of the New England Patriots. For Mike Dussault, I'm Bobby Krivitsky. Thanks for tuning in, and have a great week.